Chapter 41 Dorag's First Time. You are listening at Mtlnovel Audio. For him, the ordinary human fruit of the animal type is not an important thing. The ability of this devil fruit has actually been shown based on the performance of the Warring States period. The human fruit of the animal type is in the form of a phantom beast. After eating it, the person with the ability can transform into the form of a golden Buddha. Both palms can release shock waves. In addition, he will also have the wisdom and spirit like a Buddha. Therefore, after the ordinary renren fruit is eaten by a normal person, in addition to not having the ability to transform, the main effect is to strengthen the physical, intellectual, spiritual and other aspects, and become a truly perfect Superman. To be honest, this devil fruit is actually more suitable for academic or scientific researchers than for use in combat. The key is that it is related to the birth of Chopper. It's not that he wants a cute pet, but according to the future of the original timeline, Chopper will probably develop the so-called panacea that can cure all diseases. Although it sounds incredible, there are some miraculous black technologies in this world, and it is this panacea that him values. But the question is, even if Chopper successfully ate the everyone fruit, would he have been able to develop a panacea if he hadn't had those subsequent experiences? Would he even have thought of developing a panacea? Now the entire Drum Kingdom has undergone tremendous changes because of my intervention. Even if Chopper appears, will he still be Chopper? Let him lost in thought for a while. We have to admit the fact that his appearance will definitely lead to a change in the fate of many people. What he can do is to guide some important people to have a better growth environment. Im's eyes return to the tuntan fruit. It stands to reason that based on the ability of this devil fruit, the first candidate who is most suitable for it should be Dr. Vegapunk. With it, and some guidance from him, maybe both the pacifist and the artificial devil fruit can appear in advance, but the question now is what Vegapunk's attitude is towards the world government. It's not clear yet, but it's still the same question that once came to mind. Why would he hide the fact that he successfully copied the perfect artificial devil fruit in the future? Look first, then wait. Im thought for a while and put the tuntan fruit back into the silver box, then closed the lid and put it aside, and then picked up the letter from Dorag to Wu Laoxing. After reading the content in 2 minutes, it was as expected. Perhaps because it was the first time he wrote a letter, Dorag's wording was a little cautious, but it was obvious that the city was not deep enough. I couldn't help but pointed it out. What's wrong with world government? And the discontent comes to the fore, the main dissatisfaction centered on the slaves. That's okay. Writing a letter can be regarded as releasing your emotions. It's better than keeping it in your heart. I'm smiled. But they should start taking action over there. I think this kid is in shock now. But he had to think about the arrangement for Dorag. Is it more appropriate to continue to be in the Navy, or to be transferred to another place? Naval headquarters, Marinavando. 5 warships that looked like sea beasts formed a triangular formation and slowly sailed out of the huge open iron gate. The rolling waves crushed them, forming 3 long white lanes. On the deck, Monkey D. Drag stared blankly at the reclosed door of justice behind him. He still feels incredible about the mission he received this time. As for the presence of the silent men in white on both sides, he has become completely accustomed to it these days. Drago looked down at the mission report in his hand again. The mission location is Thutmose Island in the South China Sea. According to the report, this is a medium-sized island. The environment on the island is mainly desert and hills. Although there are 4 seasons, there is very little rainfall. The target of the mission, Taklama, is the king of Thutmose Kingdom and one of the participating countries of the world government. However, he does not have a seat in the World Conference. He is a king with a low sense of existence and few citizens, but after CP2's various investigations, we discovered something strange about this country a few years ago. Although it looks like a poor and small country, the annual heavenly gold is paid in full, and there has been no accident for decades. Also, there are basically no ships coming and going during the day, but it becomes more lively at night, with nearly 100 ships of various sizes coming in and out, and they are also scattered to more than a dozen ports on the island, so the word relative is used to describe. Recently, CP2 finally made a major discovery and discovered the second identity of the Taklama Kingdom. the slave king of the dark world. The entire kingdom of Thutmose is the world's largest slave supply station and the world's largest kidnapping group. It has tens of thousands of slave catchers scattered in various sea areas for long-term abduction, kidnapping, fraud and other criminal activities, and even affects the sparse population. A thorough sweep of the villages was carried out, and there were still about 30,000 slave-keeping troops in the country. It is said that CP2 paid the sacrifice of more than a dozen members to find out that the main facilities and personnel of the Taklama kingdom are actually inside the island. There are hundreds of large cells for holding slaves. After visual inspection, it is enough there were hundreds of thousands of captured slaves. It can be said that this kingdom actually has no concept of citizens, and even the concept of king is very vague, because they are a very professional company system. On his own island, Taklama likes to have the people below him call him boss instead of king, so rather than saying that they are citizens, it is more appropriate to say that they are employees. The goal of this mission is to capture King Taklama. If the other criminals resist, they are to be killed on the spot and free all the slaves. It also said that the rescued slaves would be led by the administrative department to organize nearby kingdoms, mobilize ships, food, doctors and other resources, and finally send them back to their hometowns. In Dorag's view, the world government's plan is complete enough, he just needs to bring the fleet to win this battle. But the more this happened, the more confused and puzzled he became. Is this really a world government? That world government that he regarded as hopelessly rotten and devoid of any kindness? This is too just. But no matter what, it is indeed a good thing, and Dorag is willing to work hard for it from the bottom of his heart, even if it is for the hundreds of thousands of suffering slaves. It is worth mentioning that this is the first time that he has led a fleet to perform a large-scale military mission as the commander-in-chief. Marie Joa, in the Hall of Power, the 5 old stars gathered together. The fleet led by Dorag has already set off. The youngest blonde 5 old star smiled. The 5-year-old star with a mustache sitting in the middle touched his bald head, looked at him without a smile, and said, "Only one major general, Dorag, was sent for this operation. I still feel that it is not appropriate. According to the intelligence, that King Taklama's strength is not weak, and he has more than 30,000 legions." As for the 2 CP0s who followed, they could not be considered as combat effectiveness at all, because their mission was to keep an eye on Dorag, and they would not care about other things at all. Even if the entire fleet was wiped out, they would only bring them with them. Dorag leaves. It should be fine. After all, he is Garp's son, and he also has the ability of the hurricane fruit. He won't be able to deal with a slave king. The 5 old stars in loose white kimono said casually, "I saw that he was carefully holding cotton dipped in alcohol with tweezers, and wiping the blade of the first-generation Gostetsu bit by bit." Furthermore, according to the intelligence sent by CP5, Garp, who said he wanted to go back to the East China Sea, suddenly turned and entered the South China Sea first. The blonde 5 old star said in a dumbfounded voice. Hearing this, Wulaoxing, who was leaning on crutches, wearing a flat hat and a hideous scar on his face, laughed heartily. This is really undisguised, as expected of Garp. At the same time, the other 3 5 old stars said no more. This Garp has passed, so what do you have to worry about? Worried about 30,000 troops. But the information provided by Doflamingo this time is very good. If it weren't for him, we really wouldn't be able to find the lair of the slave king in the dark world. Chapter 42 The Malice from Fishman Street. You are listening at MTnovel Fishman Island, Dragon Palace Kingdom, Guest Hall. Although I don't know why the Navy wants to name 2 important fishmen to be introduced, since the other party has such a request, and considering this rare friendly cooperation between humans and our Fishman Island, as the king, I still hope that the 2 of them can consider agreeing. King Neptune sat on the throne and expressed his request sincerely to Jinbei and Aladdin, who were wearing the uniforms of the Sea King army in the audience. Instead of giving direct orders with the tyranny of a king, Jinbei and Aladdin looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes, and then spoke in unison with great understanding. "Your Majesty, we are willing to accept the Navy's invitation and contribute to the equal friendship between fish and humans." Ha 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 ha. King Neptune was greatly pleased after hearing this, and he burst out with a heroic laugh and said, that's great, thank you so much, then I will introduce the details personally. According to the Navy, after the two of you go to Marineland, Jinbe will be given the rank of Lieutenant Colonel of the headquarters and serve as the leader of the newly formed Fishman unit, while Aladdin will be the major of the headquarters and serve as the leader of the Fishman unit. Adjutant. The two of you are also responsible for teaching Fishman karate to the Navy here. At the same time, the Navy branch here will also teach swordsmanship to our Sea King Army. This is also one of the practical contents that represents equal cooperation. Hearing this, Jinbe said with some hesitation, Your Majesty, with my level of Fishman karate, it should be difficult to teach me anything. In comparison, Brother Tiger is more qualified. He is 22 years old this year, and he does have some shortcomings in terms of strength, but to say that he cannot teach the Marines Fishman karate would be purely self-effacing. Fisher Tiger, didn't he go out on an adventure again? He hasn't come back yet. King Neptune said helplessly. When he comes back, I will have a good talk. Maybe you can meet in Marineland by then. In the meantime, you, Jinbe, will be in charge, okay? This is, Your Majesty, I will do my best. Jinbe saw that the king was like this and no longer shied away. Aladdin on the side had no objection. He and Jinbe were good friends, and he knew very well that there was a big gap between the two in terms of talent and strength. However, he is very interested in human swordsmanship. His Majesty, at this moment, Minister Zhou of the Catfish and Mermaid walked in. King Neptune smiled and said, Minister Zhou, what can I do? Your Majesty, the administrative construction team sent by the world government has decided on the location of the naval branch and is starting construction. Oh, where is it? King Neptune asked curiously, while Jinbe and Aladdin were also paying attention. Near the Mermaid Bay, the reason is that the pirates' main target is the mermaid, so the Navy branch is located there to protect the mermaids nearby. Moreover, it is on the surface of the earth, the sun is relatively bright, and it is suitable for human life. Ministers was said, on this Fishman Island, from top to bottom, it is divided into the aristocratic area where Dragon Palace City is located, the civilian area on the surface, and the dark area underwater. It is obvious that the main factor that distinguishes these levels is sunlight. The closer the place is to the sun, the more noble it is. King Neptune smiled and said, We have chosen a good place. Okay, let's do this. Let our craftsmen go over and help. People in the world government may not be familiar with the environment here. Yes, Your Majesty. Minister Zhou was about to go deal with it after receiving the order. At this moment, a soldier from the Navy King's army ran in, then half knelt down towards King Neptune and reported loudly. Your Majesty, there was an incident in Mermaid Bay where a murloc maliciously attacked a human construction team. What? King Neptune, Minister Zhou, and Jean Ping were all shocked. Everyone knew that if it was too serious, they would probably face the wrath and sanctions of the world government. Although the attitude of the world government has become much friendlier recently, it does not mean that they have ignored their past strength and domineering aspects. Minister Zhou, please take someone to have a look. Yes, I'll go right now. Minister Zhou realized and responded hurriedly. At this time, Jinbe on the side said, Your Majesty, can you let me and the other two come over and have a look? Yes, since the Navy values you too, it will definitely help if you go. King Neptune was a little panicked at this time. Soon, Minister Zhou took Jinbe, Aladdin and a group of 30 Sea King army soldiers to the civilian area. Only King Neptune and the Sea King army standing guard on both sides were left in the hull. Hey, I hope nothing serious happens. A sigh spread throughout this extremely luxurious Dragon Palace City. 20 minutes ago, Mermaid Bay, as the construction team of the administration department selected a location, hundreds of human workers in uniforms began to clean up and tidy up the environment of the construction site, and at the same time pulled pieces of construction machinery and equipment from the ship through vehicles. Such a lively atmosphere naturally attracted the attention and curiosity of many mermaids and fish people nearby. They had never seen so many humans since they were born. What are those iron monsters? They also roar. They are all wearing the same clothes, just like the Marine Corps. It's so interesting. I heard that they are from that world government, and they even sent back compatriots who were captured before. But what are they going to do? A graceful mermaid was either immersed in the lake or sitting sideways on a shell. Her beautiful eyes looked at the construction team and the navy guarding nearby. At the same time, after hearing the news, the number of Murlocs who wanted to come over and take a look gradually increased. Their shapes became more crude and strange, and there was almost no standard size. Some were 3 or 4 meters tall, while others were only 1 or 2 meters, but what these mermaids and fishmen didn't notice was that their existence was also a rare visual feast for humans such as the construction team and the navy. To these humans, who are basically all men, the mermaids in the bay are like being in a dream in a fairy tale. They are simply beautiful. The key is that the former are all wearing bikinis. As for the mermaids, they only glanced at them briefly to learn about the strange species in this world, and then continued to focus on the mermaids. This resulted in neither the construction team workers nor the navy soldiers noticing the malicious and contemptuous looks from some of the fishmen crowd. "Aaron, how come there are so many of these despicable humans?" The fish with a protruding mouth was a kissing fish. He put one hand in the pocket of his shorts and whispered in disgust. "Indeed, what are those Sea King troops doing?" Krubby, who had a pair of huge fins on his strong arms, was also dissatisfied. It must be some kind of cooperation between Dragon Palace City and these inferior species. Aaron, who is 17 years old, clenched his fists angrily, and his eyes were a little red. They were all orphans who grew up in the Fishman Street in a dark area and were abandoned by their parents. Therefore, whether it was the environment or human nature, they were exposed to the darkest side from an early age. Especially Aaron, when he was a child, he yearned for the sunshine and all the beauty in the rumored human world. But as he continued to grow, the humans he saw were evil, despicable, and even cowardly. He gradually accepted the view that humans are an inferior race and Murlocs are a superior race. He felt that humans were so weak and inferior creatures were not worthy of enjoying those beautiful things, and were not even qualified to be on an equal footing with Murlocs. "We can't let them succeed, we have to stop this," Aaron told the friends around him who were only 17 or 16 years old viciously about his decision. Chapter 43, Aaron was stepped on. You are listening at MTnovel What to do, Aaron? "Yes, we will do whatever you say." Aaron glanced at Xiaoba, chirped. Krubby and the others were very happy that they could support him in this way, and then he lowered his voice and gave instructions. "There are 8 of us in total. Xiaohachi, Chiu, Krubby will follow me and be responsible for dealing with the navy. Jin Zhen, Xiao Yao, Zhang, Bisaro, you are divided into 2 groups. 2 will be responsible for destroying the equipment, and 2 will be responsible for destroying the equipment. Attack those workers. Remember, you have to be fast, and pay attention to the sound from my side. As soon as you hear the word retract, you will immediately jump into the water and return to Fishman Street. Do you understand?" In Aaron's view, human beings are too weak, and they only occupy most of the world because of their large number of people. More importantly, they cannot breathe in water, so as long as they wait for others to run back into the water, there is nothing they can do. "Understood." Xiaohachi, Krubby, and the other Murlocs all nodded. As for the danger of this operation, they didn't take it to heart at all. It is common sense that the strength of fishmen is 10 times that of humans, not to mention that they are stronger than ordinary fishmen. What is worth noting are the muskets in the hands of humans, and how to avoid being caught by the Sea King army afterwards. Just captured. Soon, the 8 people divided into 2 waves, one of which silently circled the crowd on the other side, and they were ready to attack from both sides. At this time, groups of workers from the construction team carried toolboxes and followed the vehicles, slowly heading to the construction site under the watchers of a large number of mermaids and fishmen. Including the navy in charge of the guard, no one would think that there was any surprise. The scene of this mermaid harbor was so beautiful that some navy soldiers even inadvertently looked at each other with a beautiful mermaid lady. Both parties were displeased. She blushed in amusement. Mermaids are curious about humans, and humans are also curious about mermaids. As for fishmen, well, that should be called curiosity. Superior. At this moment, an unexpected incident occurred. Four sturdy black figures jumped out from the crowd of fish on both sides and charged toward the vehicles and workers in the middle of the road with malice. Who? Stop. The surrounding Marines were all born in Marine Fando, and even if they were a little lax, they would not be too outrageous. They immediately raised their guns or drew their swords to try to intercept the opponent. At the same time, Aaron, Xiaoba, Jiu, and Krubi took advantage of everyone's attention to focus on the four Jin gens and took action without hesitation. Boom. Almost at the same time, four sailors were hit hard and fell to the ground with just a moment to let out a scream. Some passed out on the spot, while others wailed while holding their hands on the pain. It's Aaron's group. Why are they doing this? The surrounding mermaids and fishmen were all exclaiming, and some who recognized Aaron and others showed disgust. These 8 people had been doing random things a few years ago, and had long been regarded by the people of Fishman Island as rogue gangster. However, in the face of such a big fight, they did not dare to watch any more and quickly dispersed. Some of them jumped into the water and swam away quickly for fear of getting into trouble. As a result, the situation at the scene became even more chaotic. In less than a minute, more than a dozen construction team workers were attacked, and an excavator with the world government logo was overturned by Zhang and Bizarro with their bare hands, and then the tires were blown out with one punch. Get them! The Navy in the distance noticed the situation and was quickly coming to support. Aaron, who noticed this scene, knocked down 4 more sailors and shouted loudly. Withdraw! As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around without hesitation and was about to leave, but at this moment, the Navy who was closer was already in place. A roar sounded. I saw a man wearing the same blue trousers as a sailor, but a close-fitting yellow t-shirt on his upper body, plus a white vest and a navy hat. The sturdy sailor, who was about 1.8 meters tall, approached the soldier at a brisk speed. Long, at the same time, his right fist, which had already been charged up, stabbed his face with a cold iron finger through the air. Humph! Aaron looked at the short human in his eyes with disdain. Although he was only 17 years old, his talent as a sawtooth shark made him a full 240 meters tall, and he was still growing taller. I saw that he showed no sign of weakness, and swung his fist as big as a bull forward, and collided with the iron-fingered tiger of the headquarters second lieutenant in midair. Suddenly, there was a dull sound, and the air where the contact came into contact was as if there was an explosion of ripples. How can this be? Aaron looked in surprise at the human navy, which only retreated 4 or 5 meters after the fist fight with him. It seemed that the human navy had not changed much. When could the power of humans match that of the fishmen? As ignorant as he is, he has no idea that the so-called saying that the strength of fishmen is 10 times that of humans is limited to ordinary fishmen and ordinary humans. The so-called ordinary humans are ordinary people who have not received any training and are under 1.8 meters in size. People, and the Marine in front of him, although he is only a little over 1.8 meters tall, is actually a headquarters-level second lieutenant. He is a branch-level figure in the world. In terms of strength alone, he is completely enough to suppress ordinary fishmen. At this moment, I saw the headquarters lieutenant moving his wrist and sneering, "You look quite big, but your strength is not that great, and you murlocs can't even eat enough." Of? How dare you, an inferior race like you, mock the superior fishmen? That just one sentence completely angered Aaron, and he rushed over without saying a word. At this time, he was at his most impulsive and extreme age. He was so provoked by the inferior people in his eyes. At this time, he only thought about how to torture the other party to death, but he didn't notice that Xiaohachi, Jiu, Krubi and others were also entangled by a second lieutenant or lieutenant from the headquarters. For a time, more than a dozen people almost turned into afterimages and fought fiercely together. At the same time, there were more and more naval soldiers with guns around. Finally, a naval lieutenant commander wearing a coat of justice rushed over. He first took a look at the group battle in the field, and then asked a sailor about the situation. Major Hodgson, through conversations with several fishmen people, we have basically understood that these 8 fishmen thugs are a gangster group from Fishman Street. They are said to be extreme racists and regard us humans as inferior. Race. The sailor said angrily. What? We humans are an inferior race. Major Hodgson, who was more than 2 meters tall and had brown-red hair, felt incredible when he heard this. How could he remember that the Murloc race was not even considered human beings, but was regarded as fish? It was only 200 years ago that it was treated as a subhuman race, and even now many humans have not changed their minds. Then the Major observed the battle situation for more than 10 seconds, and then shook his head. Although the strength of these lieutenants is good, it is almost impossible to take down these Fishman thugs in a short time. The most important thing now is to restore the construction order. It is his dereliction of duty if the trouble lasts too long. He disappeared from the spot in an instant, and the next second, he appeared in front of Aaron. The latter only felt that his vision went dark, and before he could react, a heavy kick hit his head. There was a loud bang, and Aaron fell to the ground with his head first. Due to the excessive force, he almost fainted, but he was dizzy and in pain. Just then, a shiny black leather boot stepped on his head. Hey, this is your boss, right? Major Hodgson stepped on Aaron and said hello to Xiao Ba, Kruby and other fishmen. The latter turned their heads subconsciously and stopped fighting in shock. Aaron. Chapter 44 Who is the best swordsman in the Navy? You are listening at MTnovel Southeast of the civilian area of Fishman Island, on the outskirts of the port town called Coral Hill, at this time, the sunshine from Yangshu Eve was still bright, but there was a cold wind here, and the ground was covered with ice. Only about 20 humans could be seen hugging their frost-covered bodies, shivering together. Under the supervision of the Navy, he quickly walked towards the warship in the distance. This group of pirates had already heard that hot water would be provided when they arrived on the warship, so they couldn't wait to go to the cell. As for resistance, the thought of struggle has long since disappeared. Are you kidding me? He is a backup general in the Navy, and he is also a top nature type user. He can only blame himself for being unlucky. On the other side, Kazan was talking to 3 female mermaids, strictly speaking, 2 young mermaid ladies and a young mermaid girl. Human brother, thank you very much for saving us, but you made it so cold here. Are these crystal-like things ice? The little black-haired girl, who looked to be only 4 or 5 years old, asked excitedly with trembling gums. At the same time, she squeezed her small body into her sister's majestic breasts, trying to find more warmth. La, is this your first time seeing ice? By the way, my name is Kazan. What's your name? Kazan showed a cheerful smile. Just now, he rescued the 3 mermaids in front of him from those pirates. Such a righteous act made him feel very happy, which made him feel the blood in his body heating up. My name is Charlie. This is Sister Emily and Sister Ewinnie. How do you think they are? They are very beautiful. Let's see if we can date them, big human brother. That I saw that this little girl was very lively. She introduced her directly before the 2 sisters. She looked up at Kazan and smiled mischievously. At the same time, I secretly complained in my heart, isn't this big brother a human? Why is he so tall? He is much taller than many Fishman brothers, much taller. Hey, Charlie-chan, don't talk nonsense. The mermaid sister holding Charlie blushed with embarrassment and secretly looked at Kazan's appearance. He is tall, strong, and powerful, and he seems to be a high-ranking officer in the Navy. His personality seems to be good, cheerful, gentle. Lieutenant General Ching Pheasant, at this moment, a sailor ran over and said urgently, Lieutenant General, the construction team at Mermaid Harbor was attacked by a group of Fishman thugs. Huh? Kazan raised an eyebrow, turned around and asked, is anyone injured? How many fishmen? I remember that Major Hodgson is in charge there. 13 workers were injured, 10 of them were slightly injured, and 3 were seriously injured and fell into coma. 2 excavators were damaged. There were a total of 8 Fishman thugs, said to be called Aaron's group. They have now been captured by Major Hodgson. The sailor was out of breath after speaking a long series of words. After a pause, he continued. Major Hodgson sent news that Minister Swo of Ryugong City has brought people over. He said that he hopes to hand over Aaron and his gang to the custody of the Navy King Army, so I hope you can go over and deal with it. Kazan nodded and signaled the other party to return to the team. At the same time, he prepared to say goodbye to the three mermaids, but before he could say anything, Xiao Xiaoli, who was burying her body between her breasts, asked nervously, "Brother Kazan, can I come with you to have a look?" "Why?" Kazan looked at the other person doubtfully. "Well, Aaron seems to be my brother, but I heard from others that he was abandoned by his parents in the orphanage on Fishman Street a long time ago. I want to see what he looks like." Xiaoli said weakly. When Kazan heard what was going on, he thought about it and said, "Okay, but let's make it clear first that no matter what happens to him, you can't stop him." Okay. Charlie nodded repeatedly. She was just curious about this brother she had never met before. As for feelings, there was no way to talk about them. "Okay, let's go." 20 minutes later, the warship once again came to the world government ship docked in the Mermaid Harbor. Kazan came down with a large group of Navy and 3 mermaids. Lieutenant General Ching Pheasant, Major Hodgson had been waiting for a long time, and beside him were Ministers Wa, Jinbei, Aladdin and other soldiers of the Sea King Army. Kazan glanced at the scene, especially Aaron's group, which was tightly entangled with special steel ropes. Their faces still showed shock, as if they still couldn't believe that the human navy would so strong. "Lieutenant General Akiji, such a vicious incident happened. I am really sorry. This is our negligence on Fishman Island. I have notified the doctor to come and I will do my best to treat the injured workers." Ministers Wa came over with no intention of fooling him, and he was extremely annoyed. He should have sent some Navy guards to protect him. Before, they just thought that since the Navy was responsible for guarding, nothing would happen, and the fishmen in their country were actually quite gentle, but they ignored the existence of Yumanji and Aaron's group. Think about it, how can the high-ranking officials and nobles of a country pay attention to a few gangsters at the bottom? Thank you very much. As for this matter, you don't have to blame yourself. In the final analysis, it is still my subordinate's dereliction of duty. As for the treatment of Aaron and his gang. Kazan pondered for a moment, while everyone present was waiting for his decision. At the same time, Charlie looked at the defeated Aaron curiously, curled her lips inwardly, and said to herself, "What, he's not handsome at all." She was a little disappointed. After all, he was also her biological brother. She still hoped that his image would be better. Now it seemed that he was just a ruffian who only made trouble. No wonder his parents didn't want him. In this way, I will make the decision this time to hand over Aaron and his gang to the Sea King Army. At this time, Kazan spoke, and Ministers Wa looked happy. He was about to thank him when he heard the former continue. "But it's just this once. If there are fishmen who maliciously attack Navy or world government personnel next time, we will send them to Judiciary Island for trial. I hope you can convey this to King Neptune. Ministers Wa is probably one of the few people on Fishman Island who knows the world government very well. He knew what it meant when he heard that he was sent to Judiciary Island for trial. Push forward." This shocked him. What a terrifying place it was. He had heard of it. It was said to be a hell on earth. Yes, I will tell His Majesty, and try our best to prevent this kind of incident from happening again. Next, our Navy King Army will also be responsible for guarding together. Lieutenant General Akiji, please rest assured. Kazan was very satisfied with Ministers Wa's good attitude. He ordered Major Hodgson to go over and said, "Leave Aaron and his group to the Sea King Army." "Yes, Lieutenant General Ching Pheasant." The major naturally had no objection, turned around and handled the matter, and handed the person over personally. Kazan focused his attention on Jinbei and Aladdin, and asked with a smile, "Are these 2 important fishmen named by Marshal Kong himself?" He had read the relevant information before coming here, and he was very supportive of the formation of the Murloc force. The speed and strength of the Murlocs in the water were indeed impressive, but he had no interest in Murloc karate at all. "Yes, this is Jinbei. Please give me some advice from Lieutenant General Akiji in the future." Jinbei behaved very steadily and appropriately, and his eyes were very calm, which gave Kazan a good first impression. I am Aladdin. I am very interested in human swordsmanship. I wonder who is the strongest swordsman in the Navy headquarters? Aladdin asked curiously. Fencing. Kazan was stunned, thought for a while, and said to himself, as for swordsmanship, I remember that Sakaski practiced it for a while before, and then stopped using it. Now, it should be Porcelino, right? Other than that, he really couldn't tell who was the top swordsman in the Navy headquarters, although he occasionally liked to use a sword. Chapter 45. Please read it. World Government's Annual Report. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. Within a month, Im was reading the annual report that Wulaoxing had just sent over, the full name of which was the World Government Annual Work Report for the year 1497. To be honest, his predecessor would never have looked at such a thing, because to him, both the world government and the celestial dragons were just tools to control the entire planet. He firmly believes that his own strength and the national treasure in his hands are enough to suppress the entire sea. The key is that this is not the case for my new self. As a time traveler, I know the importance of tools and my own strength is important, but making tools more useful does not conflict with the former, right? Therefore, the role of this report is to first understand the specific conditions of the tool in hand. The report contains a lot of content. Im counted 50 or 60 pages. Even so, he could only read it one by one patiently. The whole process took more than 3 hours, because he needed to read and think at the same time, and he had to stop and read it again and again from time to time. To be honest, it's quite boring, but it's not difficult if you have previous work experience. Plus, he keeps reminding himself that these are his own forces and industries, so he's very motivated. Finally, Im finished reading the last report, put it on the coffee table, and exhaled a long breath. It's not that he is physically exhausted. After all, the workload is insignificant given his strength. It's just that the amount of information received is a bit large. As I said before, my predecessor didn't read these things at all, so the content written in the report was basically unfamiliar information to him. In addition, the size of the world government was far beyond what the previous small companies could compare with. In general, the areas he is most concerned about have been clarified, and it has also given him a more specific understanding of the world government. The first is the financial aspect. Last year's total revenue was 784.3 billion belly. The main income came from the heavenly gold paid by the franchised countries, and some minor ones. The total revenue was about 3 trillion beri. Channel. There are now 170 participating countries under the world government, and according to regulations, each country must hand over 30 billion belly. In other words, including the income from secondary channels, there should be 810 billion baileys every year. But now only 784,300,000 belly have been received. This shows that some countries did not hand over the heavenly gold or paid part of the heavenly gold less, resulting in a shortfall of nearly 260 billion belly. According to the practice in previous years, the world government will reprimand those countries that have underpaid and require them to make up the shortfall next year, while those countries that have not paid will be given a one-year deadline, if the heavenly gold is not handed over in the next year. The army will be dispatched to escort all citizens of the country, including the royal family and nobles, to Techula Wolf in the East China Sea, which is also known as the country of workers. Build a lifelong bridge in the land of bridges. As for the previous countries that have less money, if they do not make up the shortfall in the second year, then the royal family will have to replace them. This is not okay. We can't go on like this. Im leaned on the soft sofa and pondered. In his opinion, this issue was very important, and its importance was no less than that of the slave trade. Each franchised country has 30 billion baileys per year, which is nothing to big and rich countries such as Alabasta, Fishman Island, Dressrosa, and the Gothic Kingdom. Even the Drum Kingdom can benefit from the medical power of the country. The reputation must be handed over in full, but for a small and poor country like the Sorby Kingdom, the pressure is too great and can even be fatal. What is the concept of 30 billion baileys? The cost of building a large warship of the headquarters level is 300 million belly, and the cost of a future pacifist is 100 million belly. in other words, a joining country must hand over wealth worth 100 large warships or 300 pacifists every year. Let's look at spending. Last year, the Navy's military expenditure was nearly 3 trillion belly, ranging from the salaries, benefits, and meals of the entire Navy to firearms, artillery, warships, and bounties, but this is not fixed. Sometimes it will be less, sometimes it will be more, it depends purely on the situation at sea. As for the Army, it also needs an unbreakable 700 billion baileys every year. In addition, Cypherpol, which is responsible for the espionage work of all sea areas. All franchised countries, and even non-franchised countries, also needs 1 trillion belly, which shows how big its scale is. Then there are the wages, food and maintenance fees of Impel Down City, which are nearly 800 billion belly. Finally, the world government's clerks and the judiciary island add up to less than 500 billion belly. It can be seen how contemptuous the previous Emu and Wulaoxing were towards government and legal personnel. These require actual expenditures, which add up to about 6 trillion belly. What about the remaining treasure worth more than 1.8 trillion belly? Put them all into Mary Joa's treasure house for the celestial dragons to spend and enjoy at will. The collected heavenly gold completely exceeds the actual demand. Im muttered to himself, if it is just to ensure the quality of life of the Tianlong people, where is the need for so much wealth? 20 billion belly every year is enough to enjoy the highest standard of things, right? To reduce it, we must reduce the amount of heavenly gold. It is best to charge flexibly in proportion according to the situation of each country. But he also knew that he couldn't rush this matter. This year's World Conference was about to be held, and if everything was put on the table, it would definitely cause chaos. First, let Cypherpol check which participating countries have too much money in the sky, causing people to live in poverty, and then find out whether it is really unbearable for the whole country, or whether it is because the royal family of the country allocates it to the citizens. Those that are really unaffordable for the whole country can be like the Bears' Sobel Kingdom, where the amount of heavenly gold can be appropriately reduced to ensure that they can basically survive. Im has already decided on the topic for the next World Conference. Then he picked up another report, which mainly contained information on the 3 armies. The so-called 3 armies, namely the Navy, the Army, and the Holy Land Garrison. The Army is responsible for guarding the important facilities of the world government and the entire Red Earth continent. According to the current world government laws, civilians are prohibited from coming up without permission, but some people just want to come up. So they need to be cleared out. The Holy Land Guards, as the name suggests, is mainly responsible for guarding Mary Joa. If the celestial dragons want to go down to earth, to play, they also need to send people to follow them. Im doesn't care about these 2 troops now. There may be big moves in the future. Navy, according to the report, the total strength of the Navy is 3 million. The naval headquarters of the Grand Line and all G departments add up to about 1 million. The other 4 Cs have a total of 2 million, but it is not even. For example, the East China Sea is the most peaceful, and there are relatively few. In fact, the participating countries have their own armies, and the Navy only needs to be responsible for order at sea, so there are no excessive troop requirements. Their main need is warships. Until now, the Navy has a total of 1,000 headquarters-level large warships, of which 100 are permanently stationed at the Navy headquarters and the remaining 900 are scattered among various G departments. It's still the same, it's not an even distribution. Relatively speaking, the G base of the New World definitely needs more warships. After all, they are facing the most vicious and powerful pirate force. Then there are about 4,000 branch-level small warships, and the most terrifying war behemoth-level warships, which specialize in serving the demon-slaying order, have always maintained a scale of 50. No wonder Wulaoxing and the others have been suppressing the development of the Navy. Whether it is military strength or authority, it is indeed a bit too big. Im murmured thoughtfully. We certainly cannot use the Navy at this stage, but we do need to find ways to balance it in the future. Chapter 46. Please read it. Everything belongs to the world government. You are listening at MTnovel On the one hand, the Navy is too strong. In Im's opinion, the structure of the world government itself also has quite a few problems, and the problems in this area are even bigger. Thinking of this makes him a little irritated. He casually picked up the red wine on the coffee table and poured some into the crystal glass. He shook it thoughtfully, took another sip, and suddenly stood up with the glass in hand and slowly walked out of the tree house. Maybe it was a psychological effect. He felt a little bored, so he went out for a walk, stepping on the silver-gray ground under your feet, with the Milky Way stars filling the sky. You stroll gently under the bright moonlight and smell the fragrance of red wine from time to time. The maids who were ready to serve nearby did not dare to look around. They lowered their heads respectfully and put their hands in front of them, as he walked. Obeyed his instinct and habitually came to a piano without any embellishment and made of pure silver. This piano has a name. It was given by the predecessor Imu 342 years ago. It is called the moon god Chin. Looked at the full moon in the sky and sat casually on the piano chair. He put the bright red crystal cup aside and lightly brushed the black and white keyboard with his right finger. Over the past hundreds of years, my predecessor has lived in the deepest part of Mariajoya, not doing nothing. After all, he is also a human being. He needs to relieve his boredom, so he has been exposed to many things intermittently, and there are only two things that can make him intoxicated: music and painting. Comparing the two, I am more interested in music. However, his so-called music has nothing to do with singing, but purely refers to the playing of musical instruments. Over the long years, he has mastered many musical instruments, and his level of proficiency, even using the word proficient, is a bit modest. Among the many musical instruments, my predecessor loved the piano the most. Sitting in front of this moon god Chin, many memories of Ueshia's solos gradually emerged in Im's mind. Suddenly, it was difficult to hold down his long fingers, so he simply raised his hands and slowly played one level after another. As he played, he became more and more skilled, and his fingers became more and more flexible. At first, he just played the melody that his predecessor often played. After a while, the melody suddenly changed, becoming more grand, powerful, and full of courage. The maids were subconsciously attracted by this scene and watched cautiously from the corner of their eyes. The name of this song is Huge Fortress, and it was one of Im's favorite songs when I was chasing it. The shocking piano melody made him fall into deep thought again. Although the departmental structure of the world government seems to be in good shape, if you look closely, you will find that there are many shortcomings. In terms of administration, the highest department is the Government Affairs Council, which is run by the 5 old stars with bald mustaches. Below the Government Affairs Council are the Ministry of Administration and the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance is responsible for the issuance of Bailey, the management of banks, and the collection of heavenly gold, while the Administration Department has more and wider responsibilities, including construction, taxation, auditing, industry, and so on. But the problem is that, firstly, there are very few employees in each department, and secondly, the division of departments in each aspect is too simple, which gives people a very complicated and confusing feeling. Of course, the so-called few people are what he thinks, because according to his future plan, the current number of government employees is far from enough. For example, after this World Conference, the next World Conference will start to solve the problem of the restructuring of Tianshangjian. If you want to flexibly charge proportional fees according to the United Nations dues system in the previous life, it is impossible to calculate it just by the member countries themselves, because it must take into account a country's population, economy, industry, and other aspects. In previous lives, most countries and the United Nations itself had financial teams. However, the development levels of the participating countries in this world are uneven, and most of them are still in ancient society. Even for a big country like Alabasta, it is difficult to have many that are good enough professional financial talents. As a result, if they want to implement proportional charging, the world government must take on this important task and evaluate the actual situation of each franchise country, which requires a lot of professionals in various fields. The question arises again, where do the professionals come from? Logically speaking, of course, they must be selected from specialized training schools, but based on the actual situation he saw, the world government did not have such an education-related department at all. There are not many schools in most of its franchised countries. Education among the nobles is provided in the form of tutors, while for the common people at the bottom, it can only be taught by word of mouth from the elders. in other words, if he wants a large number of professionals, he must first start by building schools. How desperate! For a moment, the melody under him's fingertips changed again, sounding more troubled and helpless negative emotions. Under such circumstances, if you want to reduce the amount of heavenly gold and reduce the pressure on poor and small countries, you can only choose a rough one-size-fits-all approach, and reduce the amount together regardless of big or small countries, rich or poor countries. But if we do this, the world government's annual income will definitely drop sharply, and even if we have the previous foundation, we won't be able to sustain it for a few years. Therefore, the best way is to charge proportionally, with big and rich countries paying more, and small and poor countries paying less. So what can be done to solve the problem of lack of talent? Thought for a long time, but his fingers didn't stop playing. He just kept repeating the tune of the giant fortress. For a time, the entire month was filled with an extremely tense atmosphere, correct? Suddenly, Im's originally closed eyes suddenly opened. At the same time, an invisible aura erupted from his body, causing the half-filled glass of red wine to vibrate, and the rhythm of his fingers gradually accelerated. In the countries of this world, due to the transportation difficulties between islands, the development level of each country varies greatly, but this also means that there are not only backward countries, but also advanced countries. Some of these countries are similar to modern times, some have reached the modern level, and some are even in the future. From ancient times to the future, civilizations from every period can be found on this sea. This is its most incredible place. This is another kind of organ that has all 5 internal organs, but the location of the 5 internal organs is a bit messy. North Sea. Yes, that's what Im thought of. This is an area with a large number of heavy industries, modern cities, hospitals and gangs. It is impossible for a place like this not to have a relatively mature education industry. Modern industry and commerce will definitely require a large number of technical, medical and financial talents. In addition, although there are relatively few in other sea areas, there are also islands with a high level of civilization, such as Rog Town in the East China Sea, the Seven Waters capital on the Great Line, the future country of Bakamoa, and so on. Then the world government can recruit from these countries, and even recruit talents in all aspects needed to expand various departments of the government. The more Im thought about it, the more excited he became, and he realized that he had entered a misunderstanding before. The most suitable management method for this world is not blindly developing and farming from scratch, but the scheduling of talents and resources. Whatever you need, you just need to find a place where it is available, because this sea has everything. It depends on whether you can find it, whether you know how to look for it, and how to make good use of it after you find it. For example, a franchised country has no electricity or even the ability to manufacture basic parts. It is completely an ancient country. According to common sense, it should be built from scratch. This is the normal practice of most time travelers, and he only needs to ask people to send the required materials, equipment, and talents from another modern franchise country. Isn't this the biggest reason why I value sea trains? Although there is no sea train now, it is only necessary to transfer the needed professionals from various countries by ship. It will be a little troublesome at most. If the world government doesn't have it, that's fine, as long as it becomes state-owned. In a word, what belongs to the world government belongs to the world government, what belongs to the participating countries also belongs to the world government, and what belongs to non-joining countries, of course it can also belong to the world government. After stopping playing, Im happily picked up the wine glass on the side and slowly poured the bright red wine into his mouth. Chapter 47. Please read it. 2 Fierce Cats in the South China Sea. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. Boom! A dazzling lightning flashed in the sky, illuminating the dim sea covered by dark clouds, but in the end it was only a moment of light. The black and blue waves kept trying to shake the towering red earth continent, but they could only end up being shattered into pieces. Poof! I saw a naval warship covered with gun ports. From the point where I couldn't see the top at a glance, it rushed down like a savage beast along the mountain-climbing current of the upside-down mountain, and plunged into this land that was far larger than the Grand Line. In an unknown amount of sea area. Next, every 10 minutes an identical, savage beast, would swoop down, until a fleet of 5 warships, far larger than ordinary ships, appeared brightly on the sea under the upside-down mountain. Now we're encountering this kind of heavy rain. Dorag, wearing a green suit and a justice coat, opened the hatch and walked to the deck. He was speechless looking at the gloomy sky, the howling wind and the heavy rain. However, because of the ability of the hurricane fruit, the invisible airflow surrounding him will naturally shield him from all wind and rain. After many days of sailing, they always arrived at the South China Sea. At this time, Vegapunk has not yet developed the technology for warships to pass through the windless zone, so even the Navy needs to line up to walk up the upside-down mountain. Crash, that I saw Dorag glance at the warships around him, and a light green airflow suddenly spread out from his body. Suddenly, the 5 warships were blessed by the wind. Not only did an invisible film block the strong wind and heavy rain, but the speed of the ship also increased, accelerating at a speed visible to the naked eye. He is well aware of the importance of military speed. The area of the South China Sea is very, very large. In addition, although the climate in the 4 seas is not as extreme and sudden as the Great Sea Route, it also means that it is very stable. In other words, if we are on the Grand Line, stormy weather can come and go at a moment's notice. It lasts for a short time, but no one knows whether the next one will be hail or a tornado. The duration of a climate here in Sihai is relatively normal, and it is not a problem if it lasts for several days or nights. As a result, the time it takes for the fleet to reach its destination will be greatly increased. At this time, the navies of all levels who were originally staying in the cabin gradually discovered this magical feature. Except for those who needed to stay at their posts, they stepped out of the deck to breathe fresh air with great joy. Major General Dorag, this ability of yours is really convenient. You are indeed a natural type. A major general carrying a long red sheath sword came over and said with a smile, during this operation, Rear Admiral Irvine temporarily assumed the position of adjutant. In the Navy headquarters, only vice admirals would assign adjutants to follow them for a long time, and this time it was a special case. Logically speaking, as a rear admiral, Dorag should not be the commander-in-chief of 5 headquarters-level warships, but now that he is, he needs an adjutant to assist in commanding the fleet. However, Major General Ivan has no complaints. First, as the son of Garp, Dorag will definitely be treated differently. After all, there are not many Navy who do not respect that naval hero. Second, Dorag's strength is convincing enough. Dorag, who was not an Esper before, has physical skills and domineering levels that are beyond the average level of a major general. Now that he has the top natural hurricane fruit, he must have become stronger. Now the Navy has compared him with the 3 generals of Sikorsky, Porcelino, and Kazan. It's just that Dorag himself knows his own situation. He has only eaten this hurricane fruit for about a year, and his level of development is difficult to compare with the 3 people who have been immersed in this method for more than 10 years, so his main combat power now is still focused on physical skills and domineering. Have you found out the situation of the naval branches around the kingdom of Thutmose? Dorag had no intention of joking and brought up business seriously. It has been found out that South China Sea Division 289, Division 242, and Division 194 are about 50 nautical miles away from the kingdom of Thutmose, and are located in the northeast, southeast, and west directions respectively, and we are located. The upside-down mountain is located on the northwest side. Dorag nodded, thinking in his mind, these 4 naval branches are so close to the Slave King's base camp, but why have they been hidden so well for so many years? What is the strength and configuration of these branches? The 289th Division is about the same as the 242nd Division, with about 3,000 troops and 5 small warships. The 194th Division, which is closest to the kingdom of Thutmose, is relatively stronger. According to intelligence, it has nearly 5,000 marines and small warships. 8 ships. Brigadier General Irvine told the intelligence he had obtained, and then asked, should we inform them now to cooperate with this operation, that the kingdom of Thutmose has nearly 30,000 troops and 10,000 slave-catching fleets scattered around the world. I don't know how many slave-catching fleets they can return. Therefore, with the strength of these 5 headquarters-level warships they brought, it is too difficult to make a round. Difficult, because the regular strength of a headquarters-level warship is 800 people, 5 ships are 4,000 people. Although because they are all from the headquarters, both in terms of military quality and personal strength, they are much stronger than the navy of the Sea Division, but after all, they are still few people. You know, the kingdom of Thutmose is a medium-sized island, which is actually much larger than the kingdom of the Drum. Therefore, the encirclement and suppression of the slave king, Taklama, and the entire strength of his subordinates will definitely require a joint operation with the naval branch here in the South China Sea. Dorag shook his head. No, we will notify you when we only have 1 day left to sail. These branches are only 50 nautical miles away from the kingdom of Thutmose. They can reach their locations in 2 hours at most. There is no need to rush. Major General Ivan thought for a moment after hearing this, and soon understood some of the other party's thoughts. This was obviously to prevent someone from reporting to the slave king. Thinking about it, Taklama has been operating in this South China Sea for decades. It would be nonsense to say that its influence has not penetrated into the surrounding naval branches. After all, not many people can resist all kinds of temptations. I understand, Major General Dorag. Major General AI when suddenly discovered that the temporary commander he was partnering with did not seem to be the kind of person who was all about muscles and dealt with things solely with his fists. Ahem, although some people shouldn't say this, Lieutenant General Garp gave everyone this impression, so they thought Dorag was similar. By the way, who is the pirate with the highest bounty in the South China Sea now? At this time, Dorag asked again, and Major General Ivan thought for a while. It should be the Black Cat Pirates and the White Cat Pirates. The Black Cat Pirates captain, Three-Legged Cat, has a bounty of 48 million baileys, and the White Cat Pirates captain, Kitten Cat, with a bounty of 43 million baileys. These are the two most famous groups of pirates in the South China Sea in recent years. Three-Legged Cat, fishing for kittens, what kind of funny name is this? Dorag turned his head in confusion, because it didn't sound like a nickname that a vicious pirate should have. Major General Iwan shrugged and said he didn't know. Although the names are ridiculous, according to the information, both of them are users of the animal cat fruit, and they are in the form of the palace cat and the lion cat, which are famous for their ferocity among cats. Since their real names are unknown, they are called by nicknames. It is said that they are still brothers and have a very good relationship. Because neither one wants to wrong the other, they each established a pirate group in the name of the captain. However, the two pirate groups have always acted jointly. Over the years, whether it is the strength and power are enough to dominate one side in the South China Sea, and they are not even willing to risk entering the Grand Route. I see, there are still two animal-type ability users. That's not surprising. Drago suddenly understood and no longer dwelled on the nickname. In this way, you report the news to those three branches, no, to all the surrounding branches, saying that we are here to catch these two cats, and ask them to help pay attention to each other's position, and wait for orders to support at any time. Chapter 48. Please read it. The Top Second Generation Navy. You are listening at MTnovel South China Sea, the 194th branch base of the Navy stationed at Shigua Island. This island is called Watermelon Island because its island shape is an oval when viewed from above. There is a narrow extension area like a melon vine at the top of the north side, and there are two melon-like areas inside. The long curved river looks like an oversized flat watermelon. The most important thing is that more than 50% of the island is occupied by melon fields, 30% belongs to the naval base, and the last 20% is the living area of the residents. In fact, initially the residential area accounted for 30%, but since the Navy came in with a new colonel 5 years ago, the naval base has expanded larger and larger, until now it occupies more than 10% of the area, because the melon fields are their main source of income. The residents are not willing to reduce the size of the melon fields for living space. Coupled with the gradual increase in population, their current living environment is very congested, but even so, people can only hold back their anger. First, they were unable to resist, and second, the existence of the naval base did prevent pirate attacks. Everyone now knows that there are more and more pirates on the sea. Residents who are responsible for selling melons on other islands often hear that a village or town on a certain island has been looted by a pirate group. In recent months, when they go out to sell melons, they are escorted by warships. Of course it was not free. The naval base at that time offered to provide full protection services in exchange for 40% of the total amount of melons sold. This is another choice that leaves residents with no choice. It is certainly a good thing to have a navy escort. At least it ensures the safety of the melon seller and the watermelon, but the 40% share is too high. As a result, the living conditions of the residents of the entire watermelon island have dropped from being relatively wealthy and comfortable in the past to just enough for food and clothing. Inside the base, there are 3 blue-painted column-shaped buildings, 1 tall and 2 short. In front is an extremely empty playground, and in the back is a connection to the port terminal, with many small warehouse-style buildings scattered throughout. A ruddy-faced and strong-bodied sailor was guarding the place with a musket in hand. There were 8 small warships parked side by side in the harbor. This type of warship can generally carry 300 people, with a maximum of 500 people, at this time, in an office with a space of nearly 300 square meters on the highest floor of the main building. Colonel Harem, who was born with light blonde hair and a hooked nose, stood in front of the large floor-to-ceiling window and admired the scene of the entire island, looking at it from time to time, looking at the more distant horizon. Count the time, it should be coming soon. Dong dong dong. Come in. An ordinary major walked in with an ordinary wooden box. After closing the door, he looked at the back of Colonel Harem respectfully. Basic Director, the goods over there have arrived, and there are your things. Arrive? The latter turned around suddenly and looked at the wooden box in the opponent's hand in surprise. He quickly walked over and took it over. Just as he was about to open it and take a look, he stopped and glanced at the major in front of him. You go out first. Yes. When others left the office, Colonel Harem couldn't wait to open the lid of the wooden box. The next second, a bright green devil fruit covered with spiral patterns appeared in front of him, with a card inside. It's finally here. Now my son's future is guaranteed. He excitedly took out the devil fruit and looked at it up and down, as if looking at a rare treasure. Judging from the price alone, it was indeed a treasure. He spent a full 500 million belly to buy this from King Taklama, which was considered to have spent half of his life savings. Fortunately, since I became the base director here, I have earned a lot of income every year. This does not refer to the money that the island residents get from selling melons. How much is it worth? The main reason is that the Kingdom of Thutmosa will regularly send a sum of money for protection. This is of course not directed at his branch colonel, but at his position as base commander of the 194th branch. The so-called goods just now refers to this. Colonel Harem's son is named Gaspardi. Because of his naturally tall, strong, and powerful body, and his recommendation in the letter, he entered the Navy headquarters 3 years ago and became a third-class private, but after so many years, he was only promoted to a first-class private. Although he contacted his son and told him that he would be promoted to corps commander soon, he still felt that it was too slow. In fact, he also understood that the difficulty of promotion in the Navy headquarters was definitely much greater than that in the Four Seas branch, and the pirates on the Grand Line were also stronger. So for the sake of Gaspardi's future and safety, I thought about finding a powerful devil fruit from my side and sending it to him. However, although he was a captain in the Navy, his energy was only that much. Of course, the Navy headquarters actually has channels for exchanging war merits for devil fruits, but not only is it a lot of trouble, but also the ability of the fruits cannot be guaranteed. Over the years, the really good fruits have long been picked up. For this reason, he worried for many days, and finally thought of asking King Taklama, who had great magical power and power all over the world, for help. At first, I just asked with the intention of giving it a try, but after a while, the other party was actually willing to provide a devil fruit that sounded very reliable. The special superhuman soft candy fruit can give the user the ability to transform into soft candy similar to natural elementalization. Colonel Harem was naturally extremely satisfied with such a surprise, but the other party was not without conditions. First, the price needs to be 500 million. It is extremely expensive. The market price of a normal Superman-type devil fruit is only about 100 million baileys, but this is a special Superman type, so it is understandable. Second, he must ensure that he will not be transferred within the next 5 years. This doesn't matter at all, because there is no term limit in the current Navy. As long as you make sure you don't make any mistakes while you are in office, or you make some great achievements that the headquarters has to pay attention to, you will basically not be resigned or promoted. He just needs to survive. The third is to further support the business of Thutmose Kingdom, for example, help send fleets to escort when needed. Anyway, he agreed. With this special superhuman gummy candy, that guy Gaspardi will be at least a colonel in the headquarters in the future, and he may not even be promoted to a general. Then I will have a basis for running the South China Sea. Colonel Harrows is well aware of his talent. Even if he eats the devil fruit, it will only be the same. He might as well give it to his son who has extraordinary talent. If there really is a son of a naval officer in the future, he will basically have nothing to worry about in this South China Sea. Dong dong dong. At this time, the door of the office was knocked again, which made Colonel Harrows, who was immersed in the longing for a better future, frown somewhat displeasedly, but still put the soft candies back into the box. "Come in." What else happened? The same major came in and reported, the base commander, Rear Admiral Monkey D. Drago of Marineland, led a fleet of 5 headquarters warships to the South China Sea, saying that he wanted to capture the Black Cat Pirates and the White Cat Pirates. The Cat Pirates have asked us to help investigate the location and are ready to provide support at any time. What, 5 warships? Colonel Harrows looked puzzled. Although the bounty for the Black Cat and White Cat is quite high, and there are a lot of people there is no need for so many warships, right? Do you want us to support you at any time? The fleet led by Dorag mentioned by the major must be a headquarters-level warship. When he took his son to report to Marineland, he had seen with his own eyes how terrifying the specifications of those warships were. Ahem, Major General Iwan, who is currently acting as Major General Dorag's adjutant, quietly told me that Major General Dorag is the son of Lieutenant General Garp, so he requires our ministries in the South China Sea to take it seriously. The major added in a dumbfounded voice. Road, Colonel Harrows was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing in realization. That's it. The son of a naval hero is here to gain military exploits. Then these 2 cats are in trouble. It would be fine if this operation goes well, but if they hurt Major General Dorag, TSK, the consequences will be even worse. Ha 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 ha. After saying that, he straightened his expression, looked at the major with serious eyes, and ordered, "Go ahead and prepare to dispatch the warships. As soon as the order comes, we will set off immediately without delay." In his opinion, this was a rare opportunity to get in touch with Dorag, and it would be even better if he had the opportunity to mention his son's name in front of him, the son of Lieutenant General Garp. He is considered the top 2nd generation in the Navy system. Chapter 49. Please read it. What a real treasure. You are listening at MTnovel In the Hall of Power in Marieja, Pongville Castle, the 5 old stars gathered together as usual. At this time, they all had a thick stack of documents in their hands. I never expected that one day I would be able to receive an authentic handwriting from Lord M. This is enough to be called a treasure handed down from generation to generation. As usual, because he was in charge of the Government Affairs Council, the 5-year-old star with a mustache and bald head sitting in the middle seat excitedly looked at the extremely beautiful words on the document, even the commas and periods, in his eyes all extremely perfect. The other 4-5 old stars were breathing heavily at this time, and their eyes were filled with envy, jealousy and other complex emotions, but in the end, they could only helplessly look at the document in their hands. Although the handwriting on it was exactly the same, it was a copy. Although it was equally valuable to them, enough to keep it in a good collection, it was still inferior to the original handwritten one. The difference, this time Lord M notified them of what they were going to do next in the form of a document. This was the first time in hundreds of years. From this point of view, their 5 old stars this time are really lucky. However, judging from the thickness of this document, they could also understand Lord M's thoughts. After all, if such a large amount of content were discussed in the Void Hall, it would probably not be enough for him and others to kneel down all night. By the way, Dorag's fleet has arrived in the South China Sea. Judging from the information sent back by CP2, he is doing pretty well, especially with his brain. He is not like that bastard son of Garp at all. The blonde 5-old star changed the topic. He was in a bad mood now, so he wanted to talk about other things first, and then talk about the contents of the file in his hand seriously after it was almost done, so he briefly described the situation he learned. The other people were also listening carefully. Dorag's plan does have a bit of a warring states meaning. It took into account all aspects of the South China Sea issues and ensured that it would not arouse the vigilance and preparation of the slave king in advance. The 5 old stars, who had a straight beard like a goat, laughed. Indeed, if it were Sakaski, Porcelino, and Kazan, they might not have thought so carefully. Wearing a black flat hat, a fluffy beard, and scars on his face, the 5 old stars echoed. At this time, the bald old man in kimono holding the first-generation One Tetsu looked hesitant. If this mission is successfully completed, then Dorag's rank of lieutenant general can be arranged. But I am thinking, what should I do in the future, that because he is the top person in charge of the world government's entire army, and the so-called commander-in-chief of the entire army only completes complicated practical work for him, he will be even more sensitive in this regard. You mean the general position? This is indeed a big problem, that the 5 old stars with mustaches also became serious, because the admiral represents the highest combat power of the world government and must be taken seriously. Since the founding of the world government, the Navy has stipulated that there should be a maximum of 3 admirals. Now that Sakaski, Porcelino, and Kazan have been confirmed as the replacements for the admirals, what will happen to Dorag in the future? Dorag's talent, strength, and fruit abilities are comparable to these 3 in every aspect. Moreover, he is also the son of the naval hero Garp, and he is even much better in terms of his roots and Myeolhong. So it stands to reason that Dorag is fully qualified to become a naval admiral, but the quota is not enough. You can't just give him the title of a backup admiral and let him sit on the bench and wait for decades, right? After all, Dorag has no advantage in terms of age. He is 34 years old this year, while Sakaski is 31 years old, Porcelino is 34 years old, and Kazan is even 25 years old. If there is no accident in the future, he will have to wait, unless Dorag, like his father, is willing to be a lieutenant general for the rest of his life. Would this be too wasteful? Originally, Garp's refusal to be promoted to general had already made the 5 old stars very angry. Of course, the situations between the two are different. Garp refused because there was a lack of generals, while Dorag had too many generals and there was no room for him. Hey, let's promote him to lieutenant general first, and we'll talk about the rest later. The 5 old stars with mustaches said helplessly, and the 5 old stars in kimonos on the side could only nod. When Dorag takes care of the slave king this time, this year's world conference will be halfway ahead of schedule. Wu Laoxing, wearing a flat hat, changed the topic again, because they really don't have a say in the matter of the general position, and they don't dare to change it without authorization. After all, these rules were established by Lord Imu back then, so as long as Lord Imu doesn't take the initiative to request reform, they will never mention it, whether it is the 5 old stars of this generation or the 5 old stars of the previous generations. They all know how much Lord Im doesn't like chaos and change. This is also the main reason why the world government system has not changed in 800 years, and they, the 5 old stars, therefore strive to ensure the stability of the entire world situation. Although the entire world government is now trying to change because of the big prophecy, no one knows what level of change Master Im can tolerate, so the 5 of them have already formed a tacit understanding in this regard, that is, do whatever Lord Im says to do. Well, Lord Im requested that the slave king be dealt with before the world conference. This is very wise and has solved many unexpected situations. The 5 old stars with goatees asked, but now there is a big problem before us. After the issue is passed, what will happen to the hundreds of thousands of slaves on Mariajoya? In this glorious holy land, there are a large number of slaves bought by the celestial dragons, and they are all so-called excellent and superior. The women are beautiful and cute, the men are strong and capable, or they are good at possessing some special skills. Or some kind of subhuman race. After all, they are all slaves who are favored by the Tianlong people and are willing to bring them back. What else can we do? Kill. Kimono Gohosei stroked the scabbard of the first-generation Kitetsu and replied expressionlessly, then continued. If we let them go, their hatred towards us Tianlong people will definitely have a certain negative impact, and most of them will even become pirates. The number of pirates is already increasing. That his words caused the other 4 people to fall silent. After a moment, the mustachioed Wu Laoxing shook his head. After thinking about it, he felt that this was not appropriate. Although it is easy to kill them all, the consequences are not small. Improving people's trust in the world government, restoring a positive image, and reducing the breeding of pirates are one of the purposes of Lord in promoting this year's issue. If someone discovers that it is publicized if you go out, there won't be any consequences, right? What should we do? Asked the blonde 5-old star. Let some go, lock some down. Same as returning to the mermaid and fishmen tribe before, let the crane come over to wash away the hatred of a group of slaves, and then escort them back to their hometown live broadcast to the world, claiming that Marie Joa has freed all the slaves, and the rest will find a place for the time being. Lock him up and deal with it slowly. This red earth continent is huge and there is plenty of room. The suggestion of the mustached 5-old star made the other 4 5-old stars' eyes light up, and they all felt that this was indeed a good idea. There are tens of thousands of people here, boundless. As long as they release more than 10,000 people and control them on camera, the scene will be enough to deceive the people of the world. At this time, the blonde 5-old star got inspiration and said with a smile, can this method be modified and used to solve the rumors of the big treasure first? Aren't there some people who were tempted by Roger's treasure to become pirates? Then we will organize a live broadcast to escort the big treasure back to Maria Joya, claiming that we have found one piece, although it may not necessarily be the case. It can eradicate the emergence of pirates, but it will definitely have a considerable effect. The 5-old star wearing a flat hat smiled. It is indeed a good idea. Isn't a big treasure just a treasure? Let's let the people of the world see with their own eyes what a real big treasure is. After seeing it, they will stop when they are satisfied. In terms of wealth, can anyone on this planet compare to the world government? Chapter 50. Please read it. Dorag sharpens his skills in battle. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. The 2 large seagoing ships had 4 decks, 2 of which were gun cabins. They were black and white in color. They carried almost identical skull and crossbones flags except for the cat ear color. They faced the cannonballs that were blasting through the sky. Between the high-rising water pillars, desperately fleeing towards the northwest, behind them, only a dozen branch warships were seen chasing after them, pouring countless artillery fire towards them. Damn it, why? Why did these marines suddenly turn into mad dogs and only want to bite us? On the white ship, the fishing kitten glared angrily at the fleet in the distance and cursed loudly. At this moment, the phone bug sitting on his palm spoke. Calm down, white cat. I guess it's the nobles from various countries in the South China Sea who are behind this. You can't count how many noble ships from the kingdoms you've robbed over the years. In addition, 3 months ago, we broke into the palace of the kingdom of Renner and emptied the treasure house. It seems that this incident completely angered the nobles, so they spent a lot of money to get these navy to catch us. On the other black boat, apart from being dressed in black, the 3-legged cat looked almost the same as another fishing kitten, who speculated calmly. However, he also felt something strange in his heart. Are the nobles of these countries really so powerful? You know, after being discovered by 2 warships yesterday, they seem to have been targeted. No matter where they went, groups of warships would always appear to chase them. At the most outrageous time, there were warships encircling and suppressing them from almost 3 directions. And there was another strange thing. These warships always gave him the feeling of deliberately keeping a distance. What on earth does the Navy want to do? The 3-legged cat ignored the roar of artillery fire around it and scanned the nearby sea area to think. Hey, you don't care what they want to do. I'm going crazy now. Find a target and beat him first. Maybe I'll scare them so I won't chase them anymore. Meow, kitten fishing, shouted viciously at the phone bug. At the same time, walnut-shaped light yellow cat pupils appeared in the eyes, sharp nails appeared on the 10 fingers, a pair of ears stood up, and the dangerous aura of a hunter was revealed all over his body. The white cat boss animal cat fruit lion cat, African, form has appeared. The crew members nearby, dressed in white fur coats and wearing white cat ears on their heads, shouted excitedly, for these South China Sea pirates who have not seen much of the world, the ability of devil fruit has a long-term novelty because it represents power. No, meow, but the black cat, three-legged cat, stopped him resolutely. There are too many warships. Our 2 ships are powerful enough to fight against a navy with up to 3 warships at the same time. But now there are more than 20 warships around. Do you want to live in prison with me? If you say you'd like, then I'd be happy to go in with you, meow. Hearing this, the white cat fishing for a kitten hesitated, and the murderous intent in his eyes gradually faded. Although he was impulsive and lively, he was not an idiot, and he didn't want to harm the other party because of himself. Therefore, he could only suppress his thoughts of anger. What should we do, meow? The black cat, three-legged cat, said, keep running away. Judging from the direction, I very much doubt that these navy want to force us into the Grand Line, meow. This was something he blurted out, but after he thought about it carefully, he felt it made more sense, which made his eyes light up. Yes, that should be the case. The navy in the South China Sea accepted the commission from the nobles, but they were concerned about the strength of the 2 of us and did not want to pay excessive casualties, so they wanted us to enter the Grand Route. This can be considered as a replacement. The nobles' purpose is to eliminate disasters, meow. So that's how it is, meow. The white cat, fishing kitten also felt that the black cat, three-legged cat's guess was right, and asked, then we just go along with their wishes, meow. Then what else can we do? It seems that our behavior over the years has completely angered the nobles of the South China Sea. There is no place for us here anymore. The latter sighed helplessly, the former sneered. Humph, it's just the Grand Line. Just go. We brothers join forces and can't mix up anywhere. Let's take a look at whether the nobles on the Grand Line are rich, meow. On the other side, 5 huge warships, many times larger than the branch warships in the South China Sea, rode the wind and waves in a triangular formation. In this South China Sea, they stand at the top of the food chain. Major General Dorag, there is news from the 175th Division of the South China Sea. The Black Cat Pirates and the White Cat Pirates are currently being rounded up and coming towards us, 10 nautical miles away. A colonel ran over and reported loudly. I understand, pass the order and prepare to fight. Dorag nodded expressionlessly, and Major General Iwan burst out laughing. These naval forces in the South China Sea are really enthusiastic. In fact, Dorag never expected that things would develop like this. He originally just wanted to make a small circle and head to the kingdom of Thutmose under the guise of capturing the Black Cat and the White Cat, and then on the day he arrived, he would notify the 3 nearby naval branches to come over and cooperate, so as to give the other side a beating. Caught off guard, but who knew that all branches in the South China Sea were trying their best to get these 2 cats in front of them, and it was said that they were even prepared to do so as soon as possible if the war situation on his side was urgent. Preparation for support, what does it mean? This means that even if Dorag is a useless silver wax spearhead, he will still find a way to make him eat this mouthful of cat meat and earn this military achievement comfortably. It can be seen how ignorant these navies in the South China Sea are, and their level of ignorance has made Major General Irvine laugh all the time in the past 2 days. In that case, let's accept them along the way. The 2 animal-type pirates with a bounty of nearly 50 million are indeed a big threat in this South China Sea. They can be regarded as eliminating harm for the people. Dorag looked ahead calmly. Said Hai Mian. Pirates with a bounty of less than 50 million are from all over the world. They don't think they are domineering. They should just send a few school officers. Major General Ivan shrugged his shoulders indifferently. No, I will take action myself, end the battle quickly, and then immediately turn around and attack the kingdom of Thutmose by surprise. Again, Dorag firmly believes that soldiers are valuable in speed, and taking turns is just for the sake of surprise, and the speed of the subsequent attack is the most important thing. Major General AI-1 recommended himself, if this is the case, as the chief officer, you can't take action. I can do it for you to ensure a quick victory. After all, he was the adjutant this time, so he felt that he should express something at this time, and it was also a good thing to have a good relationship with Dorag. Thank you, but I want to do it myself and try my fruit ability. Dorag politely declined. Okay, Major General Iwan didn't care, feeling that his chief officer wanted to make a splash in front of himself and all the navy. After all, it is a hurricane fruit of the natural type, so he does have the capital to show off, and he also really wants to see the battle scene of the natural type, but in fact, Dorag didn't think about these messy things. He just became an ability user not long ago, and because he concealed the fact of his abilities in order to rebel, he had very few opportunities to use his abilities to fight, so he did have some shortcomings in development, and he only had a fight with CP0 before, so he was going to take this opportunity to come up with some useful tricks on the two cats. After all, that a slave king he was going to face later was very powerful, at least domineering, according to the intelligence description. He has been immersed in this aspect for more than 10 years, plus a longer period of superhuman fruit ability. It can be regarded as sharpening one's weapons before battle,